Joining us now exclusively is MicroStrategy co-founder and executive chairman, Michael Saylor. Michael, great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Morgan.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about earnings, because in your core software business, software licenses revenue climbed 23%, subscription services revenue up 46%, but really the focus from the market, as per usual, since MicroStrategy is the largest publicly traded holder of Bitcoin, is the fact that your impairment loss for Bitcoin was so much smaller than it has been in recent quarters. Walk me through the results and the flywheel between these two companies within the company.
Sure. We have progressively built up a Bitcoin position up to 140,000 Bitcoin over the past 2.5 years. When Bitcoin traded from 66,000 all the way down to 16,000, we took an impairment loss. In the course of the last 12 weeks, that Bitcoin position has traded up $2 billion in fair market value. So, of course, when it's trading down, there are tax consequences and indefinite intangible write-offs. But when it's trading up, we reverse some of the tax accounting. The indefinite intangible treatment hasn't changed any. But I think the short of it is the software business is very stable, and it's a cash cow. And we use it to pay our interest on our debt and to acquire more Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin itself is our belief that Bitcoin is the ultimate digital scarcity network. And because Bitcoin has been moving up about 50% a year on average over the last 3 years, the real key with Bitcoin is just to be able to hold on to it and stomach the volatility. And we have conditioned our shareholders and our bondholders to understand that we're long-term hodlers. And because everybody is aligned in that interest, we're able to weather that volatility. And we end up doing very, very well as Bitcoin recovers.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is recovering, though. We're still well off the all-time highs. We're up something like 70% since the start of the year. What do you attribute that recovery to?
I think right now there are two twin drivers, right? There's the macroeconomic concern about inflation, and as inflation takes place, people lose confidence in fiat currencies, and that means they start to realize that everything valued on cash flows is a currency derivative, and Bitcoin is not valued on cash flows. It's in a digital scarcity. The failure of the banks, Silvergate Bank, Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, now First Republic Bank, causes people in the Western world to start to lose a little bit of faith in the banking system. And they remember that Bitcoin is a bank in cyberspace run by incorruptible software. So the phrase "be your own bank" has emerged as an investment idea in the United States, but it's really a matter of financial survival elsewhere. And so the combination of that concern about inflation and counterparty risk with banks is driving Bitcoin's adoption. It's also being driven, by the way, by the crypto crackdown. Mm-hmm. And as people lose faith in crypto exchanges, crypto securities, and cryptocurrencies, there's a natural migration of capital from those crypto ecosystems into Bitcoin, since it's viewed as the risk-off safe haven asset of the crypto space.
Yeah, and certainly it's being handled by regulators a little bit differently, at least right now, still being classified as a commodity, whereas the SEC is starting to look at more aggressively other cryptocurrencies as a security. You mentioned the banks. We do talk about the 3 banks that failed, including most recently First Republic. But as you mentioned, Silvergate, it doesn't always get brought up, I think in part because it voluntarily liquidated. But it was really the first example of a highly specialized bank, massive uninsured deposit base, mismatch in duration, questions around interest rate risk management. And it arguably set the stage for the SVB run that we saw just a few days later. I want to go back to comments that you made about a month before that happened, the last time you and I spoke. Take a listen.
The institutions that were improperly constructed collapsed. The Alamedas, the FTXs, the Voyagers, the BlockFis of the world. But in fact, Silvergate was a responsible bank. They were able to meet their redemptions. And if you consider the loan terms we have with them, we're nearly 4x over collateralized by 25% loan to value. The irresponsible crypto banks were doing under collateralized loans. So I think they do banking the right way in a responsible fashion, and they're a good citizen for the ecosystem.
Your thoughts now?
Well, I think what happened to Silvergate is unfortunate. I'll note that they weren't seized by the regulators. They're not in receivership. They actually were able to return all their deposits, and they're working out of that situation in a responsible fashion. And so my hat is off to them. I think it's very, very difficult time for any bank that had a large portfolio of long-dated bonds and interest rates surging from almost nothing to 5% in 12 months, I think is largely responsible for the difficulties that the banking sector has undergone.
Yeah, and you did have that retirement of a Silvergate loan at a 22% discount. But with Silvergate out of the picture, with Signature now essentially out of the picture, or at least reclaimed by another bank, what does it mean for the banking landscape for MicroStrategy and for others in the Bitcoin space? How does this now evolve and change?
I think for those that are acquiring and holding Bitcoin, it doesn't make a big difference. I think the real significance of these on-ramps to crypto being shut down is that as people lose faith in certain stable coins, or they lose faith in crypto exchanges, or if they lose faith in crypto asset securities, like the crypto tokens that the SEC is currently going after, they exit those positions, and since they're not going to withdraw their money back into fiat banks because there are no off-ramps, the natural trade is to trade all those crypto assets for Bitcoin and then put their monetary energy into the Bitcoin network. So I think this is all fairly bullish for Bitcoin. People are trying to figure out what they can trust, and Bitcoin is the most trustworthy crypto asset. It's the most trustworthy crypto network. There is no second best.
Michael Saylor, always great to get your thoughts on this topic. Appreciate the time today. And MicroStrategy up 130%, more than 130% year to date.